If you are not investing in cybersecurity, you either don't have the budget, or you didn't cross the success line, or you will be exploited. The growing pain that we are still feeling is that people don't know what blockchain is. They know that crypto is bad, the majority of the people. They know that it might be a very volatile asset if you start investing on it. But the real true purpose of it is the technology and the decentralization thesis behind it.
In your opinion, what's the most common security blind spot you see in today's Web3 projects? Everybody, and welcome to the Curiosity Code podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today I'm joined by Joao Andrade, blockchain veteran who mined his first Bitcoin in 2012 and now leads cybersecurity and compliance efforts at Hacken. From coding smart contracts to building businesses, Joao has seen the crypto world evolve from its wild early days to today's regulated, security-driven landscape. And we'll talk about how the industry has grown, where it's headed next, and what it really takes to make Web3 safer for everyone. Welcome to the show, Joao. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, likewise. Thank you for having me.
So let's start from the beginning. I have lots of friends who are in crypto, but all of them, started to get involved into industry like late 19, 18, maybe early 20th. So you started in 2012. Tell me about how it looked like back then. What originally drew you to that world and how the space looked like back then?
Yep, sure. So actually, those dates sound quite natural even for me. I would say that the large portion of my first acquaintance with blockchain, realistically speaking, was around 2019. I just had this first encounter back in 2012, and it was by accident. Back then, I was just starting my first year in the university, so I went to do electrical engineering and informatics, and it was just one random day that I was in library, and a friend comes over and tells me that he just found out some coins that he could mine with his laptop, and I should try because maybe it would be worth some money. Back then, actually, he didn't mean anything for the future, and I gave it a try, but completely blind. I was not one of those guys that found something on the internet talking about blockchain or peer-to-peer money transfer and Bitcoin, nothing like that. Just a pure random conversation from a friend. Yeah, and I gave it a try, and well, long story short, I tried to recover those 5 Bitcoins that I once mined in 2012, now in 2024, and I couldn't. I lost them forever. I'm one of those. Main reason because the laptop I had back then just had like, I don't know, around 100 gigabytes of memory. So now and then I had to delete some folders, some programs, and reinstall new. And eventually I think I deleted everything regarding the Bitcoin software and wallet, everything. And I think it was on a hard drive, like external, that I sent to the trash bin. So yeah, lost forever.
Yeah, I wonder how many lost Bitcoins like that out there that won't be claimed anytime.
Yeah, and I couldn't afford buying a complete scrapyard as someone did lately.
Yeah.
Just to
That's a
recover them.
famous story. But I think there are more than 3 Bitcoins out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, so moving forward, so you're doing your electrical engineering degree, and then something else happening in your professional life. At what point did you realize that now crypto is becoming more than random thing in your life, more than a hobby, more like a professional path?
Yeah, so I had this another random encounter when there was a crazy teacher back in university, and he mentioned blockchain again. I almost forgot Bitcoin and that I actually had them back then, but he started talking about Ethereum and smart contracts and some potentialities of them for the future. Because I was coding in many languages, I was able to do my first experiments on smart contracts. But the spark connecting with the way we started was in 2019. Now I have a master's degree, so I'm not coding anymore. I want to do other stuff. I'm out of university, and COVID comes, and I think a lot of people started to look into investing back then. There was a lot
Hmm.
of liquidity in the market, right?
Yeah.
Which would be a whole other conversation, but very much connected with crypto. But I started to look into that, and then I saw Bitcoin and blockchain as an investment. Only then. So my first interaction was on the technological side of it, and now on the investment side. And on the investment side, I realized that I probably started to look at it in a financial way as like a lot more people. And it was a big coincidence of, for example, the Binance Smart Chain starting to have a huge traction on the retail side, and therefore a lot of DeFi projects, most of them without real purpose, started to arise. And with that, there was a clear need for, people able to do partnerships, people able to do community engagement, people able to speak the traditional finance language and the crypto language. So you start collaborating here and there, you start launching some DeFi projects, some tokens, and you start feeling that some of these groups will mature to startups and companies. And I think that was the first more mature relationship that I had with blockchain. And then things flourished after that.
I think it's similar to my timeline. I think I started learning about crypto in around COVID times. Took several courses, and just learned how the ecosystem works and all of that. So I think yes, the 2018, 2019, and COVID time in general became introduction year for many people, including myself. So moving forward, I'd like to get to the point where are we at today. Walk me through that period of time. What's, in your opinion, the biggest milestones or growing pains that shape the industry we see today, comparing to how it was in 2019?
For me, what I feel is at the moment this is complete like Wild West, but it has been like this for the last 5 years nonetheless. So back then there was two different worlds. There was this tech world which I didn't took part on, which was like the real guys, those that were there since 2010, maybe even before I have discovered Bitcoin. And then there was just this mass of people where I was getting more into it, looking at it as an investment, and which I don't advocate at all nowadays. I truly believe that people should try to become a little bit more financially literate before stepping into blockchain, because it's not an investment, it's a technology. But looking at it now, I think the major growing pain was, as all emerging technologies, trying to separate the frauds, the scams that always take advantage of the lack of knowledge and literacy around some technologies, to the more enterprise institutional adoption. The growing pain that we are still feeling is that people don't know what blockchain is. They know that crypto is bad, the majority of the people. They know that it might be a very volatile asset if you start investing on it. But the real true purpose of it is the technology and the decentralization thesis behind it that is actually quite useful in many fields of our society. But this is the major growing pain for me, so that people understand what's behind it, separating now the scams and the frauds to the institutional adoption. I had a friend that I worked with not long ago, and he always used this example. When you are at Christmas with your family and iPhone is released, you always have this person, this young guy, that buys the iPhone on the first day. He's there sleeping at the entrance of the shop. And then you have that uncle that will only buy the iPhone when everyone in the family already has it. And I think this is kind of what we are feeling now. There's a lot of people that were sleeping at the entrance, and it happened that I was one of those, but it was pure luck. There are people maybe like you. I asked you enough. What were your ventures in crypto? That are probably taking a much better approach than I took. They want consensus. They want to understand what's going on. They want to make sure that the asset is actually valuable, either financially or on the technological side. And then maybe they will buy into the iPhone, you know. But maybe it's not the right time yet. And that's a growing pain. I have a lot of hopes that now 2026, I think in this podcast we always say like we all have the biggest dreams for the year that comes next, but I truly think that in 2026 it will be a major shift from what we are also seeing from the inside.
Let's see how it unpacks. I think most recent events in the market actually shook up the industry quite a lot, and maybe that even create stronger perception of how super volatile cryptocurrency is. And yeah, we'll see. Me personally, I played with it a bit, and then I walked away. I found, from the investment point of view, I found more interesting things to do that align better with my objectives. But from the day-to-day operations, I had few cases when I had to use stable coins, just for the cross-border transfers. But that's that. Not much. But that's me. I'm probably not a good example, but I'm not too much attracted to it because I don't see a lot of use cases for me personally.
Is there anything that became like concerning to you at some point?
No, not really. I just don't have use cases. That's it. However, on the business side of things, if we talk about my business that I run, there are a few folks that receiving their salaries in crypto, and for them, that's how they operate, and they see use case there. So, I think it's case by case. But if we talk about me personally, that's how I live and operate today. Maybe it will change at some point.
I don't think like it's something that we need to change at some point. Like either people will love it or hate it, use it or not. What concerns me, and this is on my free time, is that what I'm seeing is people will use it like a lot, but the same way we use like the banking system, right? And I think that I heard my grandparents and my parents in some stages of my life talking about how little they understood how things actually worked, and contracts could be a problem, and interest rates could be a problem, and asking for a loan could be a problem, but simply because there was not enough financial literacy. So
Right.
if we are gonna use like a lot blockchain, I think these questions will be raised again, like eventually. And people like us, not necessarily like our grandparents and our parents, just now it's our turn, and we will be
Mhm.
asking the same questions if we don't get into it at least. It can be a high level layer, but that's what becomes more concerning to me, that people are not paying enough attention, but just enough to understand the basics.
Yeah. I agree with you. Coming back to that analogy at the Christmas family table, I think I'm somewhere in between the young guy who gets it first and the uncle. So you are at Hacken. I'd like to chat about that. And obviously, we're talking about security. In your opinion, what's the most common security blind spot you see in today's Web3 projects?
Hacken is beyond a company. Hacken is doing like public service on the private sector, let's call it like that. So
Mhm.
security is a concern. 2 weeks ago, I had a very important meeting with a regulator, and one thing that we agreed is that previously, like 50 years ago, some people would not understand the financial system, but it was fully based on legal basis, and then money. This time we have technological basis and then money. So for you to hack an asset manager or a fund, you either get inside the office and, rob them or do something, or rob money from the vault, or you need to get inside the bank, something like that. Now is different. Now you are somewhere in the world. If you are good enough on hacking, you can just drain an entire, pool or smart contract in the level of the hundreds of millions of dollars. So in that sense, I think companies like ours are doing, to a certain extent, public service, especially while the public entities are not yet understanding that they need to take part on that process. But the biggest, not vulnerability, but let's say entry attack vector for hackers is the smart contracts. So we cover everything from smart contracts, from the protocols. By protocols, I mean the so-called layer 1s and 2s. So the rails, let's say, for the transfers. There are a lot. If someone doesn't understand what I'm talking about, it's like we have many countries, and each country has a currency, and transfers are being done inside that specific banking system or that central bank. So we do audit those, trying to find vulnerabilities that would lead into loss of funds or permanent locks that people cannot use this anymore. So smart contracts, the protocols, we do penetration tests on all kinds of applications and a lot more stuff that we do. But smart contracts are still the largest entry point for attack vectors. And it's mainly linked to its customizability. I don't think that's the correct word. But because you build smart contracts your way, and you can have certain features that increase the risk they have when they are on the market. For example, the capability of being upgraded, so that some changes can be made after you deploy them. So by deployment, we mean after they are working on the market. It's our biggest concern. If we transfer these to a real life use case, it's like, please consider that you live in a very dangerous area, and either you put alarms, you install alarms and video surveillance. You can take all necessary measures to protect yourself and your family. Either you do them or you don't do them, right? But we are in times that it's required to a certain extent, and also then these matured also for marketing purposes, so that the projects understand that the users, the followers, the investors will perceive that project as better alternative option for their money or their utility, if the project is protected, obviously. So then we can also leverage that in terms of marketing and community and traction. Yeah, but we see them every day.
Joao, what's your observation in terms of how different size of organizations approach security? So maybe we can explore both your personal experience, like hands-on experience, because you work both in startups and large-scale organizations, but also maybe we can look from the users or clients' point of view, like different cases. Can you highlight both angles of spectrum, smaller orgs and large scale organizations?
Yeah, so it's a very natural decision-making process where you have those that have more assets, more risk, more to lose, and they want to protect themselves to the fullest. Let's think of a mansion, okay, with like a lot of art and supercars inside of it. And then we have the startups, like the first, small flats, where you cannot afford all those measures, so you overlook that a little bit. It's natural. You cannot ask a startup that is bootstrapped or with a very limited budget to take like the largest necessary measures to protect your assets. I think there's a very thin line where you either, if you cross that line, you become a victim of your own success, because you became so big that you kept overlooking security and cybersecurity, and then you are super appetizing to a hacker. Then you're done. You will just request all these audits and security measures afterwards, and then most probably Hacken will help you on the recovery of the funds, but that's a gambling game. Or you didn't cross that line and you had such a focus in security that before you hit that line, you start investing on it. The way I put, for example, in front of our clients is we try to make you be worried with security one time and one time only. On that time, you will be concerned about security and price and budget and timelines. Everything will be like a mess. But it's the only time because it's much, much, much more worth not to lose everything, to lose 10% of the budget. Okay. So you should invest and source some quotes and invest in quality. And that quality comes from either the portfolio or the proposition itself. At Hacken, for example, when we do our audits, we always tell our clients it's not enough. So you will go for a second audit. We will put on top of it a second layer of protection where we will bring like a few thousands of people to review our work and to see if we did the job well done. Because if we didn't, we want this accountability. So there are many options that then you can tweak it in favor of the client. But yeah, that's essentially, you see like the big guys not overlooking it, that the startups need a little bit more time to start looking into it.
Have you seen those cases where they become so big that they overlook the security and they lost a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like many of these cases are public, or it's more like internal things that only a limited number of people know about.
So a lot of them are public. If I pick one or two, I think it would be like unfair for them, but they are public. We had pretty big ones, and usually, well, it's not only on the smart contract side, but also humans are being hacked like lately because you believe your own eyes and you believe that button will do certain things. And it happened that maybe last week something was injected on the code of your app and you are approving something that is going to other party that is not the party that you want to send money to. So a lot of things can happen. But I think who is prone to these vulnerabilities, and if they are like big guys, they are also if you are not investing in cybersecurity, you either don't have the budget or you didn't cross the success line, or you will be exploited. The same way, it's like working in the police, in a police department. The same way you know that you are doing these for your clients, you also know that here and there you have these groups, you have these people that they are looking to hack some clients. You know them, you know their addresses, you know where they come from. You simply know, and you try to control that and alert your clients if they interact with you. We also do that. We monitor the blockchain like 24/7 in a way that you can know as soon as someone who has a malicious intention towards you interacts with your asset. So obviously then this matured to a very complex offering also, and broad offering. The biggest ones you will find will in centralized exchanges, for example, where you can lose like in the order of the billions.
I'd like to get your take on what's happening with regulations and its impact on the industry. So we have MiCA, we have DORA, and they shaping and reshaping the crypto landscape. What do you think? Are they kind of? You mentioned that you had meetings with regulators, and I believe it's more like a collaboration. But do you feel like they create barriers for innovation, or it's something that helps this industry to evolve to the state where, like we said at the beginning of the conversation, with more people will trust and like a banking system, a conventional banking system, and will become those ankles at the Christmas table?
Yeah. So the regulator, it's not an uncle, but it's like, I don't know how to call it in English, but it's one of those people that work in the kindergarten, and you have a lot of kids running around and they need to put some order in the house, right? So what they are saying is, hold on, let us understand what's going on. And it's always positive, but as everything, to the extent that it's not too much. Right now, it's super positive. Okay, so trying to understand what's going on, trying to understand what's what, who's who, because we couldn't even label things like 6 years ago. So everything was a token, everything was blockchain, everything was Bitcoin. Like now we know what's a utility token, what's a security, what's an asset reference token. We know to which extent like an NFT should be considered this or that. So now we have some understanding and some guidelines. That's super important. Okay. DORA, it's an act, an operational resilience act, which its sole objective is to give rules to companies to invest in their cybersecurity, in their infrastructure. That's it. It can be called like a product of MiCA, and MiCA, for people to understand, is just a regulation that tries to put a little bit of understanding on a very high level of what's what and who's who can do what in Europe, etc., etc. Okay. In the US, it's completely different. The US has a much more strategic financial approach to it, where, and this could give a whole other day of conversation, but how that regulation can actually propel the US economy on getting rid of some debt and shifting some wealth, which is perfectly natural. The US is the smart one. In Europe, we just want to keep control of everything, that nothing is out of its place, which is also positive. In general, it's positive, and not to happen things like what happened in 2008, and a lot worse was happening in blockchain, but that at least those that want to act in a legitimate way can also be recognized for that. That's super important. Those acting in a legitimate way couldn't be recognized before this.
I like that perspective. Very, very positive and optimistic. Another topic I'd like to get your opinion on is real world asset tokenization. The space is booming, and I'm curious if you believe that it's the next real wave of blockchain adoption, or there is just another hype cycle. We've seen that in the industry in the past, with other aspects. What's your take on that?
So straight to the answer, I think for now, I was one of the most enthusiastic people on earth about RWA tokenization. Now I think it's a hype cycle. I will tell you why. But for those who don't understand, real world asset tokenization is, in very simple terms, taking something that exists in our real life, from the real world, digitalizing it in a way that we can break it down into tokens, and these tokens happen to live in the blockchain, and allowing us to have, if I have, for example, I don't know, this glass of water and I tokenize it in 1,000 tokens, I can, for example, divide it for 1,000 people, and each one of them will have a token that represents a piece of this glass. So all of this is completely unnecessary. So that's my take on it. It's completely unnecessary. Fractional real estate already exists. Fractional shares already exist. I think shares is the best example. Already exists. The thesis behind it, right? The only purpose of all these is because it's on the blockchain, it inherits certain features that shares and real estate and other assets do not have, which is liquidity. On the blockchain, I can buy, sell, transfer instantly. I don't need to go through some rails that add, backlogs and time to the process. And I would stay on the liquidity. I think it's the one that makes the largest difference. And so it's a hype cycle because it's not needed. It's better, but it's not needed. Eventually, we will use it the same way we already use fractional real estate, fractional shares. It's just blockchain behind. So people will not feel that, wow, we found something amazing and it's widely adopted. What I think really contributes to a wide adoption is, again, all these regulatory frameworks, all these ETFs around blockchain and having the underlying asset being crypto, And now these companies, in order to issue stablecoins, having to hold treasury bills. This is what really moves the economy and makes the largest institutions on earth to want to participate, and therefore where focus goes, money flows. That's it. I think the tokenization is like an improved fractionalization of real world assets. And it has some things that eventually will fade out. I mean, I love tokenization of wine, but not because I love wine, because I can drink it, because I just hold a token, right? So there are some nuances that will eventually fade out. Tokenization, as long as it's useful from a financial perspective, it's good. Now just breaking down things that really exist, and you wouldn't want to participate in things that really exist if you wouldn't want to be close to them, right? You like real estate because you can go to the real estate. You like gold because you can have it stored somewhere. You don't like real world assets to hold a digital piece that has nothing to do with the asset itself. So for me, it's a hype cycle with huge advantages, but a hype cycle.
In essence, the way I personally look at this and what I'm hearing from you, the adoption will happen when at the government level we will start using blockchain technology as a means to deliver the same experience that everybody is used to. So it's a fractional real estate ownership, since it exists, as you said, and it's governed by laws, and there are certain government bodies that regulate it and do all the paperwork. So I think the adoption will happen once those government bodies actually implement the technology behind it, and then suddenly process becomes more transparent. You can leverage liquidity, but by then it seems like it's a hype. Did I get it right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'm overlooking a little bit the fact that it brings immutability, and it would actually be awesome to have a wallet with all our documents that no one
Mm-hmm.
could corrupt. But that's just a fancy way of having what we already have. And to a certain extent, I think a lot of people would still prefer their cards in their wallets and not a digital wallet. And then Wi-Fi is off and no one has anything. So yeah, their endorsement is definitely important. And until then, if more people use it, will be behind closed doors where people don't know that they are using, but they are using. The only thing it could actually trigger a little bit faster response from people would be the peer-to-peer transfer. So not having to wait 5 days, 3 days, and even these the banks are already addressing. But that comfortable side of transferring money could be also a trigger.
Yeah, like through digital government. Let's see. Hey, I have a quick and fun personal fact about you here. You're a licensed pilot, right?
Yes, I am.
That's funny because I always wanted to get the license, but never had a chance. I've been traveling too much and moving from place to place. But anyway, so pilots are obsessed with checklists. That's how they live, right? I remember taking some courses and checklist. That's how pilots operate. I'm wondering how that mindset and, in a way, lifestyle of being a pilot impacted or still impacts your perspective on security and cybersecurity and blockchain.
Yeah, maybe a little. It impacts more on the personal life. So as soon as you start the flying, they tell you two things. First is all improvements that we had in aviation are covered by blood,
Hmm.
because you only get things improved when an accident happens. Pretty much like cybersecurity, blockchain, and all that. So a lot of people only invest in security, as we were saying, once something happens. So maybe I would love that some of my potential clients at Hacken would actually take the aviation course, and so they would actually listen to this, and they would then invest in security proactively. But the other is taking always the worst case scenario. So, for
Mm.
example, if the airplane should never exceed like 200 knots, that means that your maximum is 190, and at 180 you will see like a red siren, but it can go to the 200. So yeah, we operate on with that approach as well. So taking always the worst case scenario and doing our best to avoid like whatever comes before that.
I love it how you mentioned that. I think they say something like the rules are written by blood or something like this. And so we can say that in cybersecurity, the rules are written by lost money. Can't we?
Exactly.
All right. So let's wrap it up. And I'd like to get back to you in 2012 and think of a message that you can give to yourself. And what could you tell yourself about the journey ahead? Some advice other than not to lose those bitcoins that you mined.
Yeah. Well, it would be a very personal advice to me, which was now a lot of time has passed and I'm a very curious person. But back then I wasn't. And I was much more concerned with things that didn't really matter. So partying was much more important than studying, for example. Therefore, the lack of curiosity, curious that we are on Curiosity Code podcast, was the lack of curiosity that probably prevented me to actually understand what's happening, what was happening, other than just mining and using that software that easily ran on a 2012 laptop. So therefore, I would eventually, at some point, find out that you could actually buy it, what was behind it, and like I pray that at some point that myself would hold it forever until today, and I would be super rich. But
They could retire.
yeah, a lot of people think like that. Yeah, if I had it since back then, now I would be rich. No, we would have sold it, way before,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
would be stressing out when it went from 100 to 90, because it was a 10% crash. But I think I take with me that, be curious as much as possible, because some stuff come to us throughout life. We don't give too much attention to it, and behind that something might be that will add value to our life. But well, maybe if that's how it went, it's because it was the best version of the of my life, let's call it like that, and I'm glad that it went the way it went.
Nice. Yeah. Be curious, stay curious. Thanks, Joao. That's been a great conversation. It was a pleasure having you as a guest here.
Likewise, thank you so much, Alex.
And for the listeners, thanks for listening to the end. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a review if you're listening to this at any podcast platforms out there. And see you next episode. Stay curious, be curious. Bye-bye.